as you grow as a business and as you become more successful, more opportunity naturally presents itself. People asking you, would you be interested in this? Or what about this? And it's very easy to try and do a little bit of everything. So for me, I'd say focus on what you think is going to be the most value and do that. Focus on that as far as you can.
From Coordinate Sport, it's The Drive Phase, a show about sports leaders, founders and experts and the stories behind their business journeys. Our guest on this week's episode is Craig Brennan. Based in Manchester, Craig is a true sports entrepreneur, founder and owner of multiple businesses in the sector. His standout venture is Little Sports Coaching, launched in 2006 to deliver preschool football classes in Manchester. The company now works with 150 schools and 20,000 children per week. Craig walks us through his journey of how he grew the business and how this opened up further opportunities to expand his business portfolio, leading eventually to becoming chairman of his hometown football club, Cheadle FC. We hear Craig's take on the importance of focus, how the industry has developed, and the myths that are holding it back. So grab a coffee, sit back, and enjoy hearing from an industry entrepreneur in the midst of rapid expansion. Hi Craig, great to have you on today. Where I want to start is right back at the beginning. So my notes are, how I always start off is born and raised in Manchester, or was it Stockport? Which one would you say?
I was born in Manchester, raised in Stockport, so a bit of both.
So do you want to pick up the story from there? I mean, like obviously look at school life and kind of how you came up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I went to a state school, Catholic school, run by nuns originally when I first went there. So it's quite a strict school. In regards to school, I wasn't the cleverest, but I wasn't sort of bottom of the class. I'd say I was halfway through. Bit of a joker, enjoyed laughing and joking with friends, and I was big on sports. So I played a lot of football, some athletics, badminton, cricket. So I had to sort of go at quite a lot of sports as I was youngster, but probably football was the one that I excelled in most, and that's probably.
Were you a sporty family, did you say? Like got brothers and sisters?
No, funnily not, no. My dad will tell me he was a good footballer, but he wasn't, from what the rest of the family tells me. So not really, no. It was sort of, I fell into football through my uncle, actually, who was managing a local football team, and he got me involved. So it wasn't really a sporty family as such. I sort of moved into football more as a sort of elite sport as I got a little bit older, but I generally did quite a few sports when I was in primary school, and then focused on football as I got into high school.
Yeah, do you think that give you a good grounding, obviously, in terms of not just focusing on the sport? Like you see a lot of kids nowadays, they'll just go directly into one sport and focus on that from a really early age. What do you think about maybe giving them a bit more grounding? I know you did loads of things. I got fishing and BMX and stuff like that in there as well. So
yeah, I tried to dab hand at everything, but yeah, absolutely. I think I've got a little girl now, and one thing I'd be prepared to do is try lots of different sports and not be pigeonholed early on. So, try and find things that are cross disciplines, such as gymnastics and athletics, that you can, that will be valuable as you grow up anyway. So that's definitely something I think I benefited from, a diverse range of sports at a young age.
The transferable skills. I mean, I stopped you on your story. So you started getting into elite level football, was it?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say elite, but I had more, I suppose, a higher standard when I was younger. I played for my local, I think we called it Interleague back then, so it was sort of the best players from the league joined an Interleague. So I played in Interleague teams sort of from under 12s, 13s, and then I was at a few different clubs, trials, and I was at Man United for a while as well. Never got sort of any further than that. And then at 16, got into sort of amateur and non-league football at a young age, really. So I never went down the sort of full-time football route. It was all part-time and non-league since I left school.
You mentioned you've got kids yourself. Was that a struggle during lockdown, looking after the little one? And
it was. I mean, I'm very lucky. My wife sort of she works 3 days a week, and I work a lot. So it's kind of, she was good that she was trying to sort of do the majority of the work, if you can call it that, when it comes to looking after a little one. But it was a struggle, but it also kind of makes you realise that what you're doing it for as well. So, I do work a lot, and it kind of made lockdown was a big eye opener for me of how much time I should be spending with my family as opposed to working. So it was difficult, but it was an eye opener.
So, like you said, through school, kind of middle of the road, you'd say, an academic and stuff like that. Do you reckon you were always destined to be an entrepreneur, start your own business? Is that something you had an appetite from a young age?
No, it's never something I really thought of, if I'm honest. I can't actually remember thinking when I was at school what I wanted to do when I was older, but then I had family members and friends who I grew up with do tell me that I was often buying sweets from the ice cream man and trying to sell them at a higher price to my friends and family. And so I guess that entrepreneurial spirit was always there, but I guess I never knew what it was. My mum's actually got a home video of me filling a wheelbarrow full of footballs and knocking on for all the kids on the street and trying to teach them how to play football. So, which was really weird because she only told me that once I started my own business.
So you were saying that your mum had found an old home video of you, your early days of your coaching career.
Yeah, I think I was 5 or 6, and I'd fill the wheelbarrow with footballs and a football pump and some rocks and whatever. And I'd knock on for the children and try and get a football session going. I was teaching them all how to play football. So that was interesting. My mum never told me that until I was 22, 23 after I started my business. So
a very good one to stick on the website as an origin story
yeah.
for the group. So through school, non-league football. What about college and stuff like that? Did you go college, university, that type of sports coaching, sports science route, or what was your?
I sort of did and I didn't. So I started when I left school. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I was originally going to try out for the Marines or the Navy and go down that route. And then I found a course, which is a lot of people doing that course now. It was a BTEC in football, where it was sort of blended learning, but practical football training as well. At that time, there was no one else really offering that. So I saw that, applied for it, and I got on the course. At the same time, I just started a part-time coaching job with the local organisation. So I started the college course, and then after about 6, I think it might have not even been that. I think it went from September to Christmas. I ended up dropping out because I realised I'd get the same qualification if I just went direct with the FA.
Yeah, so you went through to college and you kind of enrolled onto the Football Excellence Programme, which was kind of a new programme at the time. Is that right?
That's right, yes. It was at Cheadle College in Stockport, and there wasn't really anyone else doing that at that time. So there's probably about 100 students on the programme. So it was blended learning, half education and half practical football. So it was an opportunity to continue playing football, which I obviously jumped at.
Yeah, and then from there, is that where you started your coaching career at that point then? I mean, was it a coaching badge mixed in with the course?
Yeah, so it was a BTEC level 2 in football coaching, which was I think it was a 1-year course, and I'd already started coaching for a local sports coaching or football coaching company part-time whilst I was at college. So as I started looking into qualifications with the FA, I realised that I could actually get my level 2 within a week by going direct with the FA, and I didn't have to waste a year at college the way I saw it, and I could go straight into coaching full-time whilst doing my qualification.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a no-brainer just to finish it a week and start earning straight away, doesn't it? So yeah, in terms of, I guess, started coaching, what made you make that decision to think, I'm going to start my own business? And it's a big leap for a lot of people. Not many people start their own business, and it's a lot more popular now to be an entrepreneur, etc. But I guess back then it maybe wasn't as much. So.
I worked part-time for the local organisation, and then I went to work for another coaching company, and I was effectively, at the time when I joined them, I was 20 years old, and I was effectively managing his business for him. I was doing all the invoicing, organising the office, scheduling staffing, generating sort of new leads for schools, organising sessions, booking venues. So I was 20 years old, pretty much doing everything. And the owner was, I wouldn't say he was non-existent in the business because I probably saw it like that at the time, but being an owner myself now, I know there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So, but I did feel like I was offering a lot, and I was getting paid very little amount of money, even for back then. So I sort of approached him and just said, well, I'd like to take more of a senior role and have more of an impact in the business. And obviously I think I deserve, a better pay packet for that. And he didn't agree. So at that point I said, okay, well, I was only working Monday to Friday for this organisation. And I had the idea of offering some football sessions locally for children under 5, which is a big thing now, but back then in 2005, 2004, it wasn't really a massive market for it. So I set up my own separate business on a Saturday that wouldn't conflict with the existing business. That grew really well, and then the owner of the business I was working for didn't really like the fact that I was doing both of those things, and my own thing was going really well. So I made the decision to leave and take my business full time at that point. And it wasn't something I ever really thought about doing up until that point, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but never look back from that point then, I guess.
No, I mean, there's been some dark days, as I'm sure you'll agree. In business, is always the dark days, but I think being your own boss and managing your own business, it's until you've done it, you don't realise how much fun it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's not many people. A baptism of fire. There, not many 20-year-olds are doing the invoicing and credit control and all that. Even seeing that side of the business, they just be out coaching and enjoying the job, I guess. But
Whether I was doing it right is a different story, but I thought I was doing okay. You just make it up as you go along at that age. But
So 2006, you start the Saturday morning stuff, and was that Little Sports?
it was called Little Kicks back then, spelled KIX. So it was called Little Kicks Coaching back then, and it was purely preschool football classes, Saturday mornings, parents involved. We have a program called Tots FC, which effectively is that. We've now turned it into a program as opposed to the whole business. But then we changed the name from Little Kicks to Little Sports Coaching in 2008 for a sort of couple of reasons that we changed the name.
From 2006 to 2020 now, you've gone from that one kind of Saturday morning class to over 100 coaches, right, at the moment?
I think about 100. Last time I checked our HR system, we had about 120 people on it. So yeah.
Yeah, so 120, over 150 schools, probably more than that now since last time we checked on the numbers. I guess without trying to bottle it all up into a couple of minutes, but I mean, what was that like in terms of growing it? And I guess when you first started, did you have the vision to get to where you are now, or was that something that's just kind of evolved as you've gone along, or did you always have that long-term vision?
I've always had a vision. I think maybe after the first year running the business, I then started to think to myself, what's the sort of capabilities of the business and how far can I actually take it? And I had visions I had maps up in my bedroom at that point. I was still in the bedroom at my parents' house, which was also my office. And I had a map up and I was pins on where I planned to open. But that was purely based on sort of aspirational, we want to be a nationwide business. What that would look like, I had no idea. It was just that I want to take this business, nationwide. But I think I've always had big aspirations, and there's a lot of stuff that I aim to do that I've failed. But I think if you don't have those big aspirations, then you're not really pushing yourself far enough anyway. So yeah, I did expect the business. I did want the business to grow, but how big and what that would look like, I wasn't too sure.
Yeah, and can you think back to kind of a moment or a milestone when you thought, right, yeah, I've definitely got something that's got legs and can be a lot bigger than just and obviously no disrespect for just the Saturday morning sessions, but for what you've developed now, was there kind of a moment in time when you can think, right, you can pin your hat on and think that was the time I realised it was going to be something big?
No, I don't think it was me. I think it was more the people telling me rather than me identifying that myself. So, the accountant, when she gets to a certain size of turnover and profit, your accountant starts to have different conversations with you about, this is a real business now. It's not a lifestyle business, and conversations start to change. And then your network to certain people starts to grow when you're speaking to, instead of speaking to, managers of businesses, you're speaking to chief execs and MDs, and then you start understanding and hearing their stories, and then your aspirations start to grow as well. So when I set up 21, I was still obviously very wet behind the ears, and I wasn't taken seriously for quite a few years, which I completely understand. It wasn't until I got sort of 25, 26, the business was doing quite well, that I then thought, actually, it's something that I can really hopefully scale and make a serious business. But so I don't think there was one time where I can remember it being a milestone for myself. It was more lots of little occasions where people started to sort of tell me that we've got a good business.
Yeah. And obviously to build out such a large operation, you've had to, I'm assuming, build a really strong team underneath you. How has that gone? Have you kind of promoted from within? Have you brought people in with the expertise that you've required? Because I know a lot of companies in the industry, most people tend to start off coaching and then they kind of work their way up, and that could be as the business owner or just the operations team. So how's that been for you guys?
It's been a bit of both, and for me, any business I'd say any business in the world, if I'm honest now, but they're only as good as the people. I think we've had a mix of promoting within the business and also bringing skill set from outside the business. And I identified quite early on that there's a lot of things that I wasn't good at, and I needed to bring people in around me who were better than me at that. And then I needed to sort of effectively let them do their job and then tell me what we need to be doing, as opposed to me telling them what I think should happen. So there's been a bit of both. There's been times where it's worked promoting within, and I'll be honest, there's been times where I probably promoted within when I shouldn't have done, more because I felt like I had allegiances with that person or those people because they've been with me for a long time and they deserve that step up when they probably weren't ready. I always take full responsibility for that. And if I do put someone in a position and they're not performing or they're not sort of achieving the objectives that we've agreed on, then I'll try and put them into another position that I think suits them, as opposed to moving them out of the business. And then on the flip side, there's been times where I've brought people from outside the business who's not necessarily got the industry experience, and it's worked the flip side where they're really good operationally but don't quite get sport or primary school PE. So it's a bit of both. But massively, I think the biggest sort of struggle I've probably had in the last 5 years is building that senior management team and getting it to the level where we're ready to grow. And that's been difficult, but I think we're there now.
Yeah. What's the kind of aspirations for the business now moving forward? Obviously, big challenges at the moment across the industry, but after hopefully after this has passed, what's kind of the or maybe as we're going on at the moment, what's the driver for you into the next 3 to 5 years?
The strategy for our organisation next 3 to 5 years is growth through acquisition. Ideally, we've dipped our toes in franchising. We've launched 3 greenfield sites, so effectively gone into regions or cities where we've got no coverage or exposure at all, and we've started from scratch, and it's worked, but it's quite slow. So our strategy now for the next 5 years, taking us to 2025, is going to be acquisitions.
Okay, and interesting conversation there. I've had it with a few of the guests as well around franchising, whether to do it or whether not to do it. Some have been super successful with franchising and really kicked on, and others have maybe chose not to do it or had a go and thought, no, it's not for us. What's your kind of take on the franchising model?
No, I mean, I did try it. For me, obviously it's a vehicle for growth. It's a model of distributing your business, and we tried it, and I just thought it limits you on, I'd say, quality. You obviously have to manage the quality a lot, and I found that a lot of franchises I come across are only as good, or franchise or businesses are only as good as the best franchise or the worst franchise. So you have a franchise up north that could be absolutely incredible, and the franchise down south that's not doing very good. Yet they own a region or a territory that could be turning over £1 million, but they're quite happy turning over 300 grand because it's a lifestyle business. So you've got 700 grand's worth of potential market that you're losing out on because that franchisee in that area isn't maximising it, if that makes sense.
It's in terms of not just the quality, so there's the quality of delivery and that control of keeping in charge of how your quality of your product, but also, that quality of performance, like you said, kind of being able to drive people who might not be as maybe ambitious as yourself to take hold of the full opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. It came down to quality for me, ultimately. And I know there's ways you can manage and sort of assess the quality of your franchisees as a franchisor, but I felt at the time that we'd have much better control on the organisation, on the quality of not just the delivery, but the standards of staffing, how we recruited staff, with people being core to our business. We felt that we were to have full control on who we brought into the business, which I don't feel you'd have as much control on as a franchise, although you might think you do. The visibility probably isn't as where we'd like it to be. So like I say, we did start. We got Brennan, the person who took on the franchise, decided to then set up on his own under a different brand, and effectively took our operations manual, took all our know-how and kind of ran. Now we had an operation, we had a franchise agreement sort of this thick, and we could have pursued it, but we decided not to. He was actually a friend of mine at the time. I still speak to him, funnily enough, and I look at it. I take a learning from it ultimately. I don't tend to get angry with things like that. I just take the learn out of every situation and apply it to how I'm going to operate in future. So for me, it was right. That just confirms that franchising isn't the way for me personally. I'm not saying it's not right for everyone. It wasn't right for me at the time.
No, 100%. That kind of leads me on in terms of one of the things that I'm sure that experience of franchising probably pushed your buttons, but I've got another question around that in terms of what's one of the common myths about the industry, about sports coaching sector as a whole. What's one of the myths kind of pushes your buttons a bit? Things that you hear, stereotypes, something that get kind of rankles you a little bit.
There's a lot of Chinese whispers, I think, for one, amongst people called competitors. And I think one thing that I was very aware of early on, I think it started to change now, is that there's a lot of people out there doing what we do, and it's become a crowded market now. And there used to be a lot of Chinese whispers and people maybe talking about each other in certain ways without actually knowing what's going on. And I think there's enough work for everyone to go around. And I think if the industry came together and was more collaborative, I think it's better for everyone ultimately. But I think there's quite a lot of there were quite a lot of providers out there who would say negative things about one organisation or to another organisation. So that kind of got me back up a little bit. But then I think the people, I started to speak to a lot of business owners in the sector, such as yourself, and there's plenty of people around the country I spoke to. We're all like-minded. We all understand the sector, and I like to think I get on really well with everyone. But I think originally it was very, very divided. You didn't really speak to your so-called competitors or the other organisations down the road. It was they were the enemy kind of thing. And I think that's starting to go away a little bit now, and people are collaborating a little bit more and working together, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I think also we might speak to the fact that it's a bit of a maybe immature market, but also the owners are quite young as well. So like with age and with age of the market, people kind of get that the market's big enough for everyone to run a successful business. Yeah, you're going to compete, but you don't need to be as I don't know, paranoid or everything's not a conflict kind of thing. So yeah, with that being where we are now in terms of the industry, what do you see the kind of changes from when you started to now? So if you were like, let's say you were looking at creating a business now, and the listeners we've got to the show be maybe not as far into the journey of growing and scaling a business, but maybe just starting off maybe a couple of years in. How do you see it for them starting out now? What do you reckon the differences between when you started and when they started?
Difference now, I said level of professionalism, definitely. There used to be a lot of, I think the term is used, white van man. There used to be a lot of small organisations with a white van, bag of footballs, cones markers in the back, and they'd go from school to school and session to session, a couple of part-time coaches potentially. So I think the level of professionalism is definitely improved, which I think can only benefit everybody. People we deliver to, families, schools, and the businesses themselves. I think that the big benefit. So definitely the level of professionalism. I'd also say people are starting to have more of a USP. There generally used to be a coaching company and they were all quite similar, offering quite similar things. But now with the introduction of technologies, different branding, different kinds of activities that are on offer, you're starting to see some sort of USPs coming to the market, which are separating some people from potential new businesses that are very experienced or people that are just doing delivery-based things. So I'd say level of professionalism and the USPs for a lot of the organisations are starting to stand out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was kind of took a bit my next question. I wanted to talk about like how do you stand out in that crowded market, and like having the USP is key, I suppose. In terms of marketing tips, have you got any tips out there for people who are setting up and what they could do for marketing their businesses better?
Well, I'd say it depends who you're marketing to, whether you're going direct to parents for your out-of-school sessions or if you're going direct to schools. And as you know, marketing and selling to schools is notoriously difficult. You've got to get past the gatekeeper. So I think number one is having that USP, something that sets you apart from the competition. So having a USP would be one. And I think number two is a quality, because schools and customers, they will talk. If you're good and you're consistently good over a period of time, schools will sell itself. We've only last year had a sales and marketing function. We've had a marketing function, but a sales that sells directly into schools, and we're coming up to 15 years old. We've had all our workers come through word of mouth. So you do a good job with one school, you look after them, you have good, high quality, consistent staff that are professional, then of course they're going to tell other schools, and we grew that way. So having a USP, doing a good job, and making sure that whilst you grow, if that's something you want to go down that route, because not everyone's happy to grow, but whilst you go down that route, that you ensure the quality is still there, you don't dilute that quality. And I'll hold my hands up, that's something that we did as we grew, because we grew so quickly that we didn't have a quality assurance team in place, and the quality of the coaches that we had probably weren't where they needed to be, and they weren't being supported and upskilled as much as they should be. So we fixed that quite quickly. But it's definitely, looking back, I'd rather have grown slower and kept that high level of quality to start with. So it's just about making that decision. Do you want it to be a lifestyle business and have high quality all the time and just be you and a couple of your staff, or even just yourself? Or do you want it to be a big business? And if that is the case, then you have to set up to grow and have that quality assurance team in place and have these key metrics in place that will identify where you're weak and where you're strong.
Sure. Just rolling back in terms of company setup and things like that, we've got Little Sports Coaching, but that's just one of the kind of elements to the Little Sports group.
That's right.
Can you run us through the rest of them? Because it sounds like you're really busy. Is it five businesses, 6 companies in there?
6, yeah. So we've got the Little Sports Group, which is effectively the holding company. And then we have Little Sports Coaching, which is set into regions. So each region is a separate business. So we have LSC Manchester, LSC Liverpool, Leeds and Crewe. So they're all separate organisations. We then have a junior football club called FC Sports. We have a non-league football club called Cheadle based in Stockport. And then we have a company called Coach Out, which is it's a web platform. So effectively, the best way to describe it is it's like Uber for sports coaches. So if you're looking for your own own private coach, football, golf, tennis, any sport, you can go on our platform, type in your postcode, what activity you want, and you can find a private coach and you can book them on the platform. So it's a one-to-one coaching.
Right, fantastic. And that's is that nationwide, that Coach Out?
Coach House nationwide effectively, but a lot of the coaches on there at the minute are Northwest based.
I mean, what we'll do with that is we'll add that in the show notes. So if anyone listening out there's interested in getting involved, signing up as a coach or as a participant, we'll get.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting for coaches, and obviously we give them a platform to sort of advertise what their skill sets are, and then people can book them based on where they are and what they can coach.
Cool. As you went through the businesses there, you mentioned Cheadle Town, kind of brushed over it quite quickly. That's to me like a huge achievement. And did you buy the club or have you took it over? Is obviously it's an existing club that's been there for years, I'm assuming, and you've kind of stepped in.
The club was founded in 1961, and it rebranded in 1978 as Cheadle Town. So it's an existing club. I played for the club when I was 21 years old. So, and then that uncle who I spoke about earlier that introduced me to junior football also played for the club, and so did his sons. He sadly now passed away, but the club was sort of in financial difficulty a few years ago, and we were looking for a club where our under-18s could move into. So we've got a junior section in our football club. A lot of players would leave football at 16, 17, 18 and not really get back into football again, which, is a massive problem. It's something that, nearly happened to me. So we were keen to have that pathway into a non-league club. And at first we were just talking about sort of partnerships, and then it became apparent that they were financially struggling. So I sponsored the club through LSC. We paid for an electrical fit out and some other things for the club, and they just didn't seem to be able to generate money themselves. So I then, over a couple of years, negotiated to take over the club. So we bought the club in 2018. The long-term plan for the club is to be in the National League, and this is going to become effectively our flagship office, our head office for LSC, or for the little sports group, and have sports facilities and the head office on site as well.
Sounds like really inspirational in terms of that. I mean, I'm trying to think as well, from a non-league club, you've essentially developed you've got a full academy structure then, right? Coming all the way from even from the top sessions all the way through to being a semi-pro. And I get, that's a standout thing in your league? I'm assuming there's not many clubs that have got that full.
Many no. And for me, one of the first things that I said to the guys, the volunteers and the board who were in place when I joined, is that for me, the two key things that I like to achieve whilst if I'm at this club for a long time or however long I'm here, the two things I'd like to achieve, and number one would be for it to be financially sustainable on its own without input from the little sports group, because we are supporting the club at the minute financially, but we want it to become self-sufficient. So that was number one. And number two is we'd like to see players that have come through our ranks playing for the first team. Now, we played an FA Youth Cup game 6 weeks ago, and there was a couple of lads playing in that who had started at our Tots FC sessions, so they've come all the way through the pathways and they're now playing in the FA Youth Cup for us. So that was absolutely brilliant for us, and it was sort of a dream come true earlier than what we expected. We expected it to be a couple more years, but they were playing for our under-16s and they ended up playing in the Youth Cups. That was great.
Yeah, for sure. You can't really get a better case study than that, I suppose. In terms of that, you've got so much going on. For our listeners as well, they probably want to hear or be interested in hearing how you kind of manage that on a day-to-day basis. So I know you spoke about having a really strong team, but is there anything you do, or what does kind of your week look like, an average week for yourself? I know you're super busy, but how do you fit it all in?
Organised. I think the biggest skill is I'm super organised. I have a diary, I have a notebook, and I have sort of notes all over the show, but I'm pretty good with lists. I like a list. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very OCD. So I like a list, and I've got really good at delegating. So I've got a really good senior management team in place with clear objectives. So they tend to sort of look after the day-to-day running of little sports coaching. And then I will meet with my senior managers once a month, face-to-face, on a one-to-one basis. And then we meet once a month as a group as well, face-to-face. So a general week would be 1 week out of every month, generally board meetings, one-to-ones, and then the other 3 weeks, me cracking on with finding acquisitions, speaking to other members of the team, making sure everyone's happy. So effectively, my role's changed in the last few years. So I'm now looking forward for the business. I'm looking at the future, and I've got a senior management team who look after the day-to-day. But in regards to organising my time, it's lists. We use Planner. So Microsoft Planner is a big tool that we use. So we use the 365 suite within the little sports group. We use likes of Teams and Planner. It just helps us collaborate a lot. So my main tools are my diary, my notebook, and my planner. And that kind of helps me manage my time. I have got lots of things going on. I'm either at the football club or at head office, or I'm visiting one of the regional offices. So if I wasn't organised, there's just my head would probably fall off. So
yeah, you'd have to take a few more holidays, yeah, for sure. What about habits, like daily routine and habits, is stuff that can keep you performing at kind of the top level and not getting burnt out, really? So have you got anything that you do that that helps you de-stress or keeps you focused that you kind of do every day or every week?
I try to have something to look forward to all the time. So every 3 months, I try and have, even if it's a city break or a weekend away with the family or a holiday with, the lads, if the missus will allow it, I'll try and get away as much as I can. So it doesn't always happen, but I like to try and have something to look forward to. So a mini break or something every 3 months, and then every weekend, even if it's just a date night or a night out with friends, or doing something that I've got to look forward to. So that's number one. Number two is the gym. I like to work out at the gym, go for bike rides. I've got a bad back at the minute, so I can't run as much as I like to, but exercise, that helps me de-stress a lot.
You must have found it tough then over lockdown. Obviously, not much to look forward to in terms of leaving the house and going on any trips or anything.
It is difficult. I'm doing a master's as well at the minute, which is I'm doing a dissertation, which is absolutely killing me. It's just I'm just having to cram that in where I can. So yeah, it wasn't ideal lockdown, but everyone's in the same place, aren't they? So yeah, I was just trying to have something to look forward to, work out or keep fit. And one area I've got to get better at is definitely making more time for sort of me as opposed to the business. The business has come first over the last sort of 10, 15 years, and I think I need to start putting myself and my family a little bit more first.
Cool. Looking at, obviously we talked about de-stressing, was there one, and it's probably recently, it's a difficult situation at the moment, but has there been one big significant challenge that you've had to overcome or that you've had to face as a CEO, and how has it kind of shaped you the way you work moving forward after it?
Business-wise or personally, or just anything?
Yeah, I'd say business-wise. Yes, a challenge that you faced within the business. I know you spoke about the franchise and that not working out, but is there something else you can think of that really tested you?
It's probably what I spoke about earlier. It's about growing whilst keeping the quality right. Because as you grow, your business change, your processes change, functions change, people come in and out of your business. So trying to keep the business running effectively and at a high quality whilst trying to grow at the same time, it's just chasing your tail all the time. So you'll fix something in your business and then you'll grow, and as you're growing you fix something else, so then you're having to rewrite that process. So that's probably the hardest thing that I've found, being able to keep the quality whilst growing the business at the same time. We are for our industry, I'd say we're a relatively good sized business, but in the grand scheme of things of businesses, we're a small business. So having that lack of resource to be able to say, I'm going to focus just on growing the business while you guys just concentrate on the business has been difficult. But I think we're sort of 90% there now. Yeah,
you're at that stage now, aren't you? Moving forward rapidly. Over the course of the time you've been in business, so you're looking at 14, 15 years now, have you kind of developed any type of specific philosophy that you kind of attack things with, or the way you see business and entrepreneurship? I've
definitely changed as a leader. I've definitely changed as a businessman. I don't really refer to myself as an entrepreneur, I guess, because it's something I've always done, but I suppose I am, I guess. My philosophy is, and I'm a big one for it, if you're going to say something, do it. So I'm massive on that. Don't say something and then not follow it. That's one of my biggest pet hates, whether you're an apprentice coach or you're a managing director of a business. If you're going to say something, and that's to your team, if you're going to promise your team something or you're going to promise your customers something, you have to deliver it. You can't just say it and not back it up. So that's kind of one thing for me, that I'm definitely a doer. If I say I'll do something, I'll do it, probably to my own demise sometimes, taking on too much at once. That's probably one for me. And then number two is about quality. I think no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing something that you feel is beneath you, do it to the best of your ability. Some of the jobs I've had in the past, I think my first job was a pot washer. And I remember the boss telling me at the time that I was the best pot washer he's ever seen. And looking back now, it's just a stupid thing to say. But it just meant was that, because I've got OCD, it just meant that every pot was clean and it was tidy, and the kitchen was, the sink that I had was really clean. It was well looked after. And I think I've always had that kind of philosophy that if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability, because what's the point in doing it unless you're going to do it to the best of your ability? You're still going to be there for the same period of time, so you might as well be the best at doing it. So I've kind of had that all the way throughout my career, my sporting life. Anything I've done it to the best of my ability. Even cleaning, that's probably where my OCD comes from. That I'm going to hoover up, I'll hoover up properly. If I'm going to wipe a surface, I'll wipe a surface properly. So my staff hate me for it. Like, I catch them out with everything. If they leave a dirty spoon on the side, then it's World War II in our office. Stuff like that. It's just, I call it standards. It's just about having some standards. So they're the two big things for me, I think, is if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. And if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Sure. So that quality and that consistency is what, I guess that's what's running through all the business as well, and how you've developed it and managed to grow it so well. Just before we finish, I had one question for you. Is if you could go back to that 21-year-old Craig, just starting the business, what would you tell yourself at that point? If you had the opportunity to go back, tell them a nugget of knowledge, what would you tell yourself back then?
Focus. Don't take on too much. Focus on what you think is going to work. Focus on the one thing. If you speak to any massively successful business leader, the likes of Bezos, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, what's the most important thing? They'll all say the same thing. It's about focus, because as you grow as a business and as you become more successful, more opportunity naturally presents itself. People asking you, would you be interested in this? Or what about this? And it's very easy to try and do a little bit of everything. So for me, I'd say focus. Focus on what you think is going to be the most value and do that. Focus on that as far as you can. Brilliant. No, appreciate your time, Craig. Really great insights for our listeners. I hope they're going to take something from it and move their businesses forward. All of your information you've given us will be in the show notes for anyone to access. Is there anything else in terms of what you're doing at the moment that you want kind of our type of listeners to hear about and learn about? I don't think so, no. I mean, thanks for the opportunity. We enjoyed it. It's always a difficult one speaking about yourself. So thanks for the questions. They're good questions. But if anyone's listening to this and they do want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, you can reach out to me. I think the Twitter handle's CraigB_LSC. But feel free to reach out to me, ask me any questions. And I'm always happy. There's a few people in the industry that I currently mentor at the minute, on a free basis. I just offer them advice when they need it. So I'm happy to do that with anyone who needs any advice or has any questions. Brilliant. And good luck for the season. And thank you. Club as well, mate. Thanks a lot, mate.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can write to us at dryphase.podcast@coordinate.cloud, tweet us @coordinatesport, or follow us on Instagram @coordinate_sports, or on my account @James_Ventures. This episode was produced by Nancy Kwamboka, with support from Claire Goodchild and Lola Small, with special thanks to Rochelle. I'm James Moore, and you've been listening to The Drive Phase from Coordinate Sport.